James David Redding III is the sound editor on the Netflix miniseries The Queen's Gambit. He's also done work on City on the Hill. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, here to ask you, James, what was the most important sound to get right in The Queen's Gambit?
Well, the Queen's Gambit had a couple of different ones to get right. First, you had to set the mood. You had to set up, sort of Beth's psyche, and what was going on. You didn't really know this character when you're first introduced, and then you sort of things are revealed throughout, right? But sound helped set up sort of the mood of the whole thing. Obviously, getting the chess matches right, having the right amount of tension with the right amount of crowd and the right amount of anxiety of what's happening, but also they weren't loud. You didn't have like a loud crowd. You had loud chess pieces, you had loud movements, but you didn't have loud crowd. So you had to sort of play this balance of mood and reality and, you know, make chess exciting. I mean, it is exciting, but it's I don't know, for me it's like watching golf. I'd rather be playing than watching.
Yes, it's not like the big sort of stadium event. It's on a very small scale.
It's
Chess.
very intimate to
Yeah.
it's a very intimate war.
Yeah. And I guess like that means each sound in a chess game is very important because you don't have this big thing to be looking at. What was like, how did you approach the sound work for those chess matches?
Well, for those, it was okay. First, start off with where are they actually taking place,
Mm,
right? Her first match is in the basement of the orphanage, and it's this new world. She's interested, but you don't know what's going on. So it's okay. Basements tend to be scary. She's little. She's younger at this time. Let's set this up as a dark thing. And then it's like, okay, now she's going to gymnasiums. She's playing at the schools. Okay, it's a little bigger, a little brighter. Start with the reality, and then it's what is Beth feeling during it, right? Beth is feeling anxious at her first one. She's also very strong, right? As a
mm,
character, she was very strong. So she's you're conveying this emotion of anxiety that then sort of relaxes once she gets into the matches, right? The world sort of falls away on her, which I thought was beautifully executed in the way that they scored it and the way that they mixed it was great. It allowed that to really happen, with everything else built up around it.
yeah, boy. Did you how many times did you have to, as sound editor, have to hear that clock go on and off on it?
Probably more than I can actually count.
Yeah.
I mean, those sounds. It's funny, especially during the pandemic. We've all been working from home,
Mm.
and my daughter's been schooling from home, and she's like, "Oh my God, Dad, please stop watching the same scene over and over and over again." If you take how many times that you saw it in the show and then multiply it by about 100, you might be close to how many times.
Yeah. Well, it's the sound editors and editors in a film or a TV show who probably get to watch it more than anyone else.
And,
Yeah.
and it's my wife always complains that she never gets to see the things that I work on because by the time I'm done working, I've seen it so much I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Uh, so unless we're going to a premiere or something like
Mm.
that, I will admit with Queen's Gambit, I was excited because of the way that it was finished, right? I mean, we finished in
Mm.
lockdown here, that it was fun to watch it on Netflix because it was like a nice screening room for myself. My wife got to enjoy it. I got to see the final product. Um, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Did you have I was gonna say, like, as someone who has to watch the scene over and over, like 100 times or even more times, what was the scene you enjoyed watching the most times? Like, which is the one that got the old the least quickly?
Um, I'd probably say the scenes with Schneibel, the janitor at the
Mm.
orphanage.
Yeah.
I really warmed up to those. And probably the scene where when Beth takes on the high school students
Mm.
in that tournament where she's just going board to board to board. I don't know why that just seemed like such a badass scene to me. It was just like, here's this, kid taking on these other kids, older, but and just being like, okay, you want me to take them all down in chess? Fine, boom, boom, boom. And like, I don't know. That's sort of like maybe that's my dream to be able to do that at some point in my life. Be so good and confident that I could be just like, yeah, I can master this, no problem.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. What did and you did you have you played a lot of chess and stuff like
Actually,
before?
I started teaching myself while working
Yeah.
on
Oh,
Queen.
okay. Yeah.
Um, it's one of those things where I just started while working on the
Mm.
show. My nieces and nephews are like they play a ton, and they tried to teach me once, and I couldn't get into it. But I finally sat down when I started working on Queen's Gambit and watched a bunch of YouTube videos and got a couple books out from the library and started teaching myself. I'm
Is
not very.
that is that hard to like do work on something where you're less familiar with the thing, like you have to teach them stuff because you don't know the sounds of the world, or is it good because you sort of don't come in with any preconceptions as to how something should sound?
Personally, I like it when I come in without the preconceptions. Not knowing the world, I think of what the objects are.
Mm,
Right. What are the pieces made out of? What do they look like they're made out of? What am I supposed to make them sound like? Like, it's kind of like with cars. I worked on the Americans a couple
mm,
years ago, and right, it's like they had all these cars that were junkers that didn't run. Okay,
mm.
well, what's that car supposed to be emoting? What's it actually sound like in real life? How do we make it sound that way? So not having the preconceived notions sort of gives you a little bit of leeway to just buckle down and focus on what you're trying to do, right? I'm not sitting there judging best moves or knowing that. I'm just like, okay, piece down, clank. Okay, where she's in the basement now. Okay, let's put in some pipes banging around. Let's put in some dark atmosphere of the furnace burning. Um, and I didn't have to. I didn't get into this like, oh, I can't believe she moved that piece there. Why'd they shoot that shot? It was
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
kind of like with any project though. Like that's what I do with any project is I rather come in even if I do know a little bit about it.
Mm.
I rather come in and just focus on what's actually happening on screen or what am I supposed to be expanding upon from the screen.
Yeah. And is there something that like what was it like working on this series? Like how did you feel when you were spending a day in the sort of edit room?
I This series, and it's funny because you get these series every once in a while, and this one was one that I didn't really have any. Eric Hirsch was one of the supervising sound editors who brought me on to the project, and he was just like, "Hey, I got a series. I want to work with you." And I was like, "Cool, I want to work with you." And he's like, "It's about chess." I'm like, "I don't care. Let's make it sound good." And and so at first when I first got it, I was like, I didn't have any spotting notes. I didn't have any real notion about it. I just, he gave me files. I put them up in my studio and I said, all right, let's get down to this. And I actually really liked it. Like, and I love it when you can watch something that you're working on and be like, yes, you don't have to convince yourself. You're just like, this is really good storytelling. And sometimes, we all have those projects where it's like you're doing a favor for somebody or you're doing something else where you're just like, they could do this. Queen's Gambit, I sat down and I was like, no, and I knew it. I was like, this is going to be great. Like people are going to love this. And what's funny is I think we finished, I finished like 6 months before anybody else even heard of it on Netflix. And then to see it take off when it was released was so sort of gratifying. It's like, all right, I worked on something that people like, and also I have a slight pulse on the industry of what people like because it's like, all right, I actually like what I like.
Yeah.
Yay.
Oh, was there a moment when it sort of clicked for you that this is something special?
Um, with it, I think it was in the very beginning, it was kind of hard because we didn't have all the visual effects in yet.
Mm,
And so at first I was kind of like, what's actually happening in the scene? We had these scenes where she's looking up at the ceiling and you didn't have the chess pieces there yet when I started on it.
yeah.
But as I got into the second episode and you the as the character grew, even the actress who played young Beth was just really strong, and you just sort of felt this great connection. And by the second episode, and then when she got adopted, it just that sort of clicked. I was like, this story is something unique. Um, and it's not just like this, oh, here's this orphan girl that's going to be picked up by this lovely family in suburban America. Like you were just like, okay, this has a twist to it. And it's kind of cool. It pulled you through, which I really like in a story. I like when stories pull you through. I don't like it when they tell you. I like it when they sort of reveal.
Mm,
Um, and so that was for me. And I watched it, I worked on it in sequential order.
mm.
So for me, that is how the story came. I was kind of,
Oh,
it wasn't one of like, oh, we finished episode 4, start on that. No, like
mm.
I got it in sequential order, so it was kind of nice that way.
Oh, it's really nice. You were like the Russians. They were like looking at, what is she looking at? What is
Yeah,
she? What is Yeah, what's up there? Like, why is she obsessed with the ceiling?
exactly.
Anyway, the what is gonna well, you were on the pulse with this series being something special. Audience did respond well. And you also won, is it the Golden Reel Award? Have I got the right name of the, I sometimes get the names of awards mixed up. You won the Golden Reel Award for sound editing. What was it like to win that for your work?
That was great, and it was awesome because the Golden Reel is from the Motion Picture Sound Editors group, and it's really just a bunch of us sound uh, not gurus. I don't want to say geeks, but we kind of are. We're all just really into sound and audio, and so it was nice to be appreciated by people that that they're listening to the same things that you are.
Mm,
That they're listening as intently, and they're working on similar things. And for them to appreciate your work was really great. And it was also really sweet because uh, the Queen's Gambit took all 3 categories that it was nominated in.
mm,
They won for the music editing, they won for dialogue editing, and they won. Well, we tied with Picard, I believe,
mm,
Star Trek Picard for sound effects. But for a show about chess
yeah,
to do so well in sound, we didn't have dragons, we didn't have lasers, we didn't have fights. We had tension through audio, and to be recognized that we were able to build such a oral universe that way. I mean, between Wiley Stateman, Greg Swatlowski, and Eric Hirsch, the sound supervisors and such, it was such a great team collaborative effort to build this world. And to be recognized for it was excellent. It was great. I've worked on a lot of projects. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and
mhm.
this is my first nomination and my first win, which
Wow.
it's a great project to be part of, and it's great that it got recognized in such a way.
Yeah, you didn't have dragons, but you did have knights and kings and
Exactly. We had all
queens
these
doing
other
battle. Yeah,
cool things.
yeah. um, yeah, and you've also done work on City on a Hill this past year. How is your work on the Queen's Gambit and your role there different or similar to what you do on City on a Hill?
City on a Hill, it's a little. I'm a little more involved with that because I've been working with Tom Fontana, who is the showrunner of it since Oz. So
Mm.
back in 2000,
Whoa.
and Tony Pipitone, who's a sound supervisor, I've been working with him forever. We're usually co-re-recording mixers together, and so when it comes to doing City on the Hill, I handled everything.
Mm.
In that one I was sound designer, sound effects editor. I cut the backgrounds, I cut the cars, I cut the gunshots. I discussed with Tony, the moods that we're going to put into things, and I sort of also pre-mix everything because I've worked with Tony and Tom for so long. I know how they like the sound of things, so I sort of set everything on the stage as far as audio, sound effects, and when Tony got it, he just had to do slight adjustments around the dialogue, which was kind of nice for him, especially with the way the schedule has been this year, because
Mm.
everything's been crazy this year, right?
Yeah.
So, what's great with City on a Hill is it's also a different time period. It's 1990 Boston. It's more of a cop drama. You have the FBI, you have the DA's office. You're still creating a tension, but it's a different type. And then you have a lot more with this show. You have a lot more explosive energy,
Mm.
right? Especially this season, we had a couple gunfights going down, a couple cars peeling in and out. We didn't have the chess pieces moving. I didn't have to listen to a clock again, which was kind of nice.
That's good.
But you know, I got to be for my role with Tom, because I've worked with him for so long, and that whole crew, Irene Burns and Aaron Selaquini, the other producers, I know what they like audio wise, so I can add more sound design elements that will meld with the way that I know they're thinking music, and
Yeah.
sort of push and pull the emotions a little bit more with that.
Do you have a favorite moment from that
From City on
series?
a Hill,
Yeah, City on a Hill.
City on a Hill, there were a couple good ones. There's one moment where um, the DA, played by Aldous Hodge, is DeCourcy Ward, is being trapped in his car by somebody who's trying to take him out, and he and his wife are driving home, and it starts as this like really simple moment of them driving. They pull up to a stoplight, and this guy comes up behind them and traps them between another car.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool because we got to play the tension with the tires squealing, and it wasn't your typical like violent scene, you know. It sort of was like the sweet scene that just all of a sudden escalated and pulled you into this, and then there was gunshots to punctuate it. So it sort of had like a whole gambit of things. I like, again, like I like things that pull you through. I like things that grow, you know, and that scene really grew kind of nicely. I also kind of liked, there were a lot of scenes where just story wise you learned a lot more about the characters, and it was fun to play with those emotions. Kevin Bacon's character Jackie Rohr, he has this emotional breakthrough sort of at one point, and it was fun to be able to help the audio bring you through the story that way. Which is, a lot of people don't realize that we do this, right? A lot of people just think, oh, somebody's walking in high heels, you put on high heels and walk in it, right? Or, oh, there's a car driving, you're just driving a car. No, we're trying to mess with your emotions without you realizing that we're messing with your emotions.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Do you have? Oh no, go.
I was just going to say that this season of City on the Hill, I think, is probably one of my favorite things since I did The Americans. It sounds, I think it came out sounding fantastic.
Yeah. What I was going to ask you is, like, is there a particular film or television series that growing up made you think, it doesn't have to be when you were a kid, but just before you started working in the industry, that made you think, oh, I'd love to be involved in sound?
Yes, there's one particular film that made, and I also teach, and so I always bring this up to all my students. Though Luc Besson's The Fifth Element. When I saw that film in college, it was right before I went to do my semester in LA with Dane, and I remember watching that and just being like, what is happening sound wise here? Like, I was interested in sound. I was definitely on like the radio audio side of things, but I'm watching this film and you couldn't tell what was dialogue, what was sound effects, what was music. It was just all so beautifully blended and magical. And I just remember being like, holy cow, this is awesome. And that, when I went to do my semester abroad from New York to LA, when I was there, that's what made me look into doing post-production audio. Originally, I thought I was going to go out to LA and work at K-Rock and do radio, but I was like, no, I just watched this amazing film, and what is this thing, audio post-production? You know, I didn't even know it existed. And then I happened to hook up with Dane Davis, who was just a fabulous mentor, and he happened to be working on this great project called The Matrix at the time, so I got to learn even more. And then what's even better is that Julia Evershade was also working on The Matrix, and she happened to be one of the sound effects editors from The Fifth Element. So I got like to like a little bit of like, you know, fanboy, a little Wayne's World here. And then she introduced me to John Fathal, who was one of the sound recordists, who's done so many things. I mean, he's worked on Top Gun. I mean, he's recorded all these instrumental sounds in movies. And it was just great to be able to talk to them about The Fifth Element, and them telling me like how they did consciously think about how to make all these pieces fit. And it really opened my brain up early, to realize, okay, this is a career I can pursue. And you know, I just took off from there. You know, it was like after watching that movie and then getting to work on The Matrix, you know, your brain sort of exploded in audio.
Oh boy, and you talking about how making all the pieces fit made me think, oh boy, Sanity, not too dissimilar from a game of chess where you got to think a few moves ahead and how everything impacts the other thing and stuff like that. Which
And
really
that's one of those things that you always have to discuss with the showrunners or the directors and editors is if you can get a sense of where a story arc is going, like if you're doing something like City on the Hill, if you can get a sense of where the character is going, you can help build that even more into the sounds. And I'm not talking foreshadowing.
Mm,
I'm talking that you can make the characters seem a little more vulnerable in certain sections or
mm.
make them seem more powerful when you need to if you know where the story arc is going. So if you can have that discussion early on, I mean, it just makes the project that much stronger. Unfortunately, right, time and budgets nowadays, it's sometimes hard to have those conversations
Yeah.
because nobody has the time. But when you get to it, you sit there and you're like, okay, now we can make these pieces fit, and now we can make it all work.
James, thank you so much for talking with us today. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com where they can make their own award predictions and they can get into discussion in our forums and they can watch other contender interviews for awards. And James, just all the best of luck with your work moving forward and with the upcoming Emmy Awards for the Queen's Gambit and City on a Hill this year.
That would be great, right? But
It'll be
thanks for having
very
me.
good. No worries. Thanks for chatting.